So what's the deal with NFL owners? There are 32 teams, each with coaches, general managers, scouts, doctors, analytic guys, you name it, all working around the clock. And yet all that really matters is whether or not the guy or gal up in the owner's box actually has a clue as to what they're doing. And who are these people that own teams? There's no job interview to own an NFL team. There's no resume. The only qualification, do you have enough money? So congratulations, you now control the entire happiness of the city of Cleveland for the next 30 or 40 years. Oh, and you didn't actually earn the money yourself. Your dad did. Welcome aboard. Did you even have to go to college? No. Did you play football? Doesn't matter. But now you get to decide the fate of millions of fans. Meanwhile, if you want to sell a beer in the stadium, you have to have a license, you have to have a background check. There's an entire application process. Owning a team, just a check that clears. And I root for the Titans. Man, they stink. It's crazy. They were in the championship game. Then they won the division 2 years in a row. They were in first place. The owner got mad. Yada, yada, yada. They're the worst team in the league.
Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Okay, Stillman and Company on a Titans Monday. I had to start it off with that little skit. I was thinking about it, about how much of a freaking joke this whole thing is. And so we started off right then and there. Stillman and Company, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical on 440 Sports, YouTube, and the like. You know, on YouTube at Stillman and Co. That's our official YouTube page. Go like and subscribe. You all know the drill. Again, it is a Titan Monday. You all know how this works. So let's get right into it. Because, as you know, with this being Titan Monday, you guys know that Titan Monday has turned into a depressing kind of Black Monday feel. You know it. You know it. I know it. It used to actually be fun. We would talk about the game that had happened on Sunday. We would talk about the referees' calls. We would talk about who played well. A lot of times, we would talk about the Titans winning the game. That's what Titans Monday used to be. And now, Titans Monday kind of sucks. And yesterday may have truly been rock bottom for the Tennessee Titans. But I have said many a times over the last couple of years that things felt like rock bottom, only for there to then be another low. This team is so bad that I don't even feel the anger that I used to feel towards this team. 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but the Titans went on the road to Cleveland. If you'll remember, right before half, they didn't get points because Tim Kelly and Mike Vrabel thought it was a good idea to single up Andre Dillard on Myles Garrett. And I was angry with how shitty the Titans were. Now I just watch the game on Sunday. I expect it. I plan accordingly, and I go from there. And I did think there was a legitimate chance Callahan was going to get fired this morning when the team, again, is just so freaking bad. I thought there was a legitimate shot that he was getting canned. And then PK put out that he wasn't expecting anything, which kind of gave me the all clear, nothing's going to happen, business as usual with Brian Callahan coaching the Titans, and on we go. And here we are. His press conference just wrapped up. He didn't really say anything, which for him is good because his press conferences have been bad of late. So business as usual. Now, I want everybody out there to know the day to watch with Amy Adams Strunk, as it is well documented, is Tuesday. The day after the game. Ken Wisenhunt got fired on Tuesday. John Robinson got fired on Tuesday. Mike Vrabel got fired on Tuesday. Rand Carthon got fired on Tuesday, and Mike Mularkey got fired on Monday, but they played a playoff game on Saturday, so that was based off the game timeline the exact same. So tomorrow is really the day where if Callahan makes it through tomorrow, then he's still a coach based off of how Amy does business. But I think Amy remains steadfast in her approach to let Callahan lose as many games as possible. I don't know why. So I think he'll be the coach for at least one more week. And I can tell you all the things I've been telling you now for months, and in some cases, years. Team sucks, coach sucks, owner sucks, but you already know all those things. That's not overly insightful at this point now, is it? If I were to, on Titans Monday, break down the game yesterday and say, my biggest takeaway from that game was, I think Houston, who I thought was going to be good before the season, who I think has a collection of talent that is good, I think Houston sucks. And they beat you 26-0. So I'm going to do something that most people in the media and most Titans fans on YouTube, and I guess I'm now somewhere in the middle, I don't know. But I'm going to do something that most people in the media don't do, and most fans that get on YouTube channels, I'm going to do what most people don't do. Most people wait for the organization to make a decision, make a change, make a trade, make a draft pick, sign a player, and then they talk about it. Then the team puts their spin on it, and it either becomes over-the-top homer talk, like, let Rand cook, baby, or, well, we have to see how this is going to work. And if you know me, that's never been me. Again, if you remember draft night when Peter Skoronski got taken, I lost my shit. Same thing a year later with J.C. Latham. And I'll cop to being wrong if I'm wrong. I'll put my hand up and say, hey, I was wrong. And I know I get kind of the reputation for not doing that, but I don't understand why, because I feel like I do that all the time. But I teased this topic yesterday during Post-Game Live. Instead of let's break down the game and go from there, I teased this yesterday on the show, and I think this is what I want to do today, which is what I call first guessing. Instead of criticizing after the fact, let's bring solutions to the table. So I teased yesterday on Post-Game Live. What would I do if I bought the team today? Let's say my house was sitting on a massive oil well. And as Jerry Jones said in that cowboy documentary, he saw the oil well just spitting out gushing oil. And he said, Jerry, you bought the Cowboys. So 30 years from now, you'll stay up way past your bedtime and score 40 points and tie a fucking ball game and waste everybody's time with a tie. Although we did have Jake Ferguson and George Pickens in fantasy. But let's say that the oil well burst, and Jerry said when that happened that he said, Jerry, you just bought the Cowboys. So let's say an oil well pops at my house. I don't know. An ungodly amount of money comes my way, and I can buy the Tennessee Titans. And I do. What would I do if I bought the team today? And usually I say things like, if I owned the team, but I am literally using this line of demarcation. If I bought them today, because the bedrock issues with a lot of the things going back to ownership that have plagued this franchise lately wouldn't have happened if I owned the team. Firing J-Rob in season, hiring Rand Carthon to work with Vrabel, promoting Rand Carthon, whatever the fuck it is Chad Brinker does, letting Brinker hire a GM. Again, why am I paying two people for one job? I don't understand. Again, forcing the coach in there. I wouldn't have done any of that. I wouldn't have drafted Cam because I don't think the organization was ready to develop and nurture Cam Ward. But I can't change that. And we all want solutions, right? We all want to know, how can the Titans dig themselves out of this mountain and avalanche of crap that they are under? And yes, again, the number one thing here is for Amy to sell the team. That would give the Titans, in my opinion, the best shot of being good again, but she's not going to do that. So this is what would happen if I owned the team starting today. If I bought the Titans, are you listening over there? The deal closes in record fashion, and as of 2 p.m. today, I own the Titans. Here's the first move I make. Number one, I have a big, long sit down with Mike Borgonzi. That is the first person that I go talk to. And I say to him, Mike, what's the plan? Give me your vision for this football team and how we get out of this mess that we're in right now. This is essentially a job interview for Mike Borgonzi. Now, he doesn't have to wow me. He just has to show me that he has a competent plan. And that's a very important first step. I need to know, as the new owner of the Titans, I need to know that I can trust Mike Borgonzi before I move on to step two. And what I'm looking for from Mike Borgonzi is an identity. What do you want the Tennessee Titans to be? Okay, you tell me what you want the Tennessee Titans to be. Now, give me a detailed plan of how we're going to get to that identity. I don't need buzzwords. I need actual solutions and people to point to. Think about a press conference when somebody gets hired. It's all buzzwords. It's all bullcrap. It's all, we're going to work so hard and we're going to be so dedicated and we're going to be. No, I don't want to hear that. I need to hear which scouts are we leaning on? Who do you need to add to the scouting department? Who do you need to bring in as coach? Who do you like as? Those are the questions that I'm going to ask. And when you own the team, the difference between owning the team and being a media member is they can say whatever bullshit they want to you if you're in the media. And there's really nothing you can do about it. They can't do that if you own the team. So the first step is a sit down with Mike Borgonzi in which I'm saying, what is the identity of the team going to be? And what's the plan? Again, take me step by step. What is the actual plan to get there? That's step one. And let me put a little asterisk by this before we move to step two, because there is an if Borgonzi bombs that interview, then what? But let's say he passes that first test. That's step one. Second move, as the new owner of the Tennessee Titans. Now that I've got Mike Borgonzi's plan in place, the second move is I am firing Brian Callahan and I am firing Chad Brinker. They are both gone. Number one, on the Brinker front, I don't need two guys to do one job. And no matter how the Titans spin it, and they've been trying to spin this for 2 years about, well, the job of a general manager in the NFL is just too big nowadays. So we need to have multiple people do the job of a GM. And I asked Brinker in his little press conference he did with no audio and no video to be taken. And by the way, if I own the team, that fucking shit would never happen. The idea of a general manager meeting with the media and not allowing audio or video to be disseminated. That's a joke, by the way. But in that little press conference, gaggle conference, whatever you want to call it, I asked Brinker, I said, why do you guys keep saying that you need multiple people to do multiple jobs? Like this is some sort of revolutionary thing when teams that are better than you have one guy that does that job. You just lost by 26 points. They have one guy in Houston, Nick Caserio, who is the general manager and runs the Texans football operation. Why do you need two guys? I own the team. I don't need two guys. I don't need to hear the horse shit the Titans say about why they need two guys. Brinker's gone. I want a general manager who reports to me, and I want a coach who reports to the general manager. And if Mike Borgonzi convinces me he has a solid plan, no Rand Carthon rainbows and ambiguity, but a real plan, then he's the general manager. And then Mike Borgonzi runs the team. And Borgonzi gets the nod over Brinker because, once again, I don't need two guys to do one job. I don't need reports in the media about Borgonzi liked this guy, but Brinker liked that guy. I don't need any of that. I need one guy to do that job. And Borgonzi gets the nod over Brinker because Borgonzi has a better resume than Chad Brinker does. Chad Brinker does not have a resume. Whatever voodoo he pulled on Amy to make her think that he can fix the Titans as the assistant general manager, I do not get. Brinker's a nice enough guy. He seems smart when you get to know him in real life. But the problem is that Chad Brinker doesn't have a resume that says this guy should be running an organization. Mike Borgonzi, now, again, I wouldn't have hired Borgonzi because I wanted experience in that position, but Mike Borgonzi was the assistant general manager of the Chiefs. That is the kind of job that gets you a real GM job. Assistant general manager of a good team is like assistant coach of a good team. That then gets you head coach job. So Borgonzi has the better resume, and he has less of a connection to the current organization, which I think needs to be blown up in perpetuity. And since it's September 29th, it's not ideally the great time of the year on the calendar to blow up the organization. That's what I'm going to do. Borgonzi's in. No more. He's kind of the GM. He's kind of the GM. He's kind of the president. He's kind of the... No. That is over. Borgonzi is the general manager. Borgonzi runs the team. Callahan and Brinker, they're out. Now, I want to go back to step one, where the first thing I did was sit down with Mike Borgonzi and ask about the identity of the team and the vision for how to get there. And I told you, I'm putting an asterisk by that decision. Because if Borgonzi absolutely bombs the interview, or he doesn't convey to me a message that gives me any faith that he knows what he's doing, then he's fired too. And I would hire Mark Dominic, the former general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to run the team on an interim basis as the general manager. But Borgonzi would really have to bomb. And I don't expect that to happen. So again, first move, if I bought the team today, Borgonzi's in, Brinker and Callahan are out. The third move is a move that is more of a nod to the power I'm going to give Mike Borgonzi. I have talked at length about how I think Mike McCoy should be the interim head coach of the Titans. But because I want my general manager running the football team, Mike Borgonzi would be the one to pick the interim coach. My expectation would be that he would pick Mike McCoy. But at this point, I'm just trying to get through the season. And I'm really now more about making statements and showing people that I am empowering Mike Borgonzi than I am, hey, I want Mike McCoy to be the coach, and if you want to be my GM, you've got to make the interim coach the guy I want to be the GM because I know. I want everybody in that building to know that Mike Borgonzi, as of this moment, runs the Titans. And the only way to do that is to empower him to pick the interim coach. Again, it's not that big of a deal. It's interim coach. We're just trying to get through the season. It doesn't matter. The team stinks. It's not going to be. So Mike McCoy makes the most sense. He has been a head coach, unlike Bones Fossil, who has been an interim head coach, but hasn't been a head coach before. And unlike Bones Fossil, he doesn't oversee a side of the ball. He doesn't really have a responsibility. He doesn't. Callahan went over who does what with the game plan. McCoy wasn't in that. So you're not taking away your play caller on offense, your play caller on defense, your organizer on special teams. You're taking a guy who has an undefined role and you're saying, you're going to be the CEO of this for the rest of the season. And that's it. Now, I would tell Mike McCoy, hey, Mike Borgonzi runs the team, and that it is unlikely that you will keep the position as a full-time head coaching candidate, but do the job as if you were going to be the coach next year, because I'm not ruling it out. And I know you're going to sit there and say, Mike McCoy, but hear me out on this. I believe this team needs more of a Mike Mularkey type coach in the future to teach this team how to win again. Old guys, all about ball, all about business. Take that laminated play sheet and just throw it right into their shorts. then they need a Ben Johnson type coach. Now, I know you people are going to tell me that they need a Ben Johnson type coach. You people are going to tell me they need to go get the hot coordinator out there that's never coached before because look at that offense. And I mean, maybe, but again, I think this team needs more of that Mike Mularkey type coach. And maybe Mike McCoy's that guy. I don't know. I don't think he'd get the full-time job, but I'd tell him, hey, run the team like you're going to be the coach next year. And then we'll decide. Chances are we'll probably decide against it. But go ahead, knock yourself out, see what you can do. The fourth move I would make, again, if I bought the team today, I would hold a press conference. But the press conference is not for the media. The press conference is for the fans. Kaharski always complains about the fact that press conferences used to not be live streamed for the fans to see. So if a writer had a question, he'd ask it, and then you'd have to read the story. Well, it doesn't work like that anymore. Everything's on camera nowadays, and everything is on social media, and everybody is on their phones. So I would be holding a press conference for the fans, using the media as the conduit to send the message to the fans. And in that press conference, I would outline how the moves of firing Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker are symbolic because the 2025 season is gone. But the gesture to the fans is enough of the bullshit. We're going to get this right, but it is a rebuild. And we're going to rebuild by acquiring more picks, using the picks to determine the right players, determining the right people to determine the right players. And we are going to spend in free agency, but we're going to be very judicious about how we do it. Because while rebuilds take time, becoming competitive on a weekly basis, it shouldn't. Now, Floyd and I talked about this one time, and he told me, he said, I can take a 3-win team and turn them into a 7-8 win team. And again, this is back with the 16 games. So he told me going from 3-13 to 8-8 is a lot easier than going from 8-8 to 11-5. And then the real tough stuff is to go from 10-6 to 13-3. But it's not hard to go from 3-13 to 7-9 in a 16-game season. And that's going to be the goal right now, is to become competitive weekly. And I want the fans to know that. And that's the fourth move. So the first move is I need to talk to Mike Borgonzi, and I need to figure out, does Mike Borgonzi have the chops to be able to do this? Or is Mike Borgonzi as full of shit as all the other guys, Brinker and Carthon and all of the ones that have come before him, or not? The second move is Callahan's got to go because I have to send a message to the fans. Enough is enough. And Brinker's going to because he's part of the problem. And he has done nothing in 3 years of being in this organization of trying to fix something. And I don't need to pay two people to do one job. The third move, Mike McCoy becomes the interim coach if that's what Mike Borgonzi wants. But Mike Borgonzi is going to run the team, and I want Mike Borgonzi to run the team. So if Mike Borgonzi wants Bones Fossil, then I guess Bones Fossil is the guy. If he wants Denard Wilson, I could not see why he would. But if he wants Denard Wilson, then Denard Wilson's the guy. Fine, I don't care. The fifth move, I'm bringing back Robbie Bourne, the PR director that Chad Brinker fired. And he would return as senior vice president of whatever the fuck you want to call it. And here's why this is an important move to me that gets put on the list. Since Robbie's departure, for whatever reason, the PR of the team has been a total nightmare. Most of that is not the PR department's fault. But they aren't making matters better now, are they? Callahan has stepped in at the podium to 10 unforced errors in 3 weeks? That has to stop. Last year, they lost all these games too. But it wasn't a constant barrage of Callahan missteps. Secondly, as I said, the local press is the conduit to the fans. You can't talk to the people that make decisions unless you run into somebody somewhere. But you can talk to TD. You can talk to Paul. You can talk to the local media. That's what the media's job is. They're a bridge to the fans. And the local media lost a lot of confidence in the organization when Robbie got let go. Because while Burke, Nihill, and everybody else were preaching that we've got to step it up as an organization, every single one of us in the local media knew Robbie Bourne was good at his job and knew that this was what I call MGS, which runs rampant in the NFL. Just a classic case of my guy syndrome. My coach, my GM, my organization, my PR guy. And I think that hurt a lot of the trust that the press had with these guys, Burke, Nihill, Chad Brinker, to get these decisions flowing in the right direction. And I want to bring that trust back. And I know this is a rebuild. And so the best way to start a rebuild is to demonstrate to people that you're going to bring in qualified and professionals, and the local media, again, the conduit to the fans, would see that I'm bringing back a qualified professional to help fix the organization. And then the sixth and final move, again, I just bought the team, is I'd have to talk to the players and I'd want them to know Mike McCoy, or whomever Mike Borgonzi names as the interim head coach, is running the team. And everybody has a clean slate. And that nothing matters more than getting the ball club right. But that on a daily basis, Mike McCoy or Bones Fossil or Denard Wilson or whomever runs the team. And that Mike Borgonzi runs the organization. He's the general manager. He makes the draft picks. He's the general manager. He signs the contracts. He's going to run the operation. And again, if it were up to me and we could go back to January and build a time machine, and Borgonzi wouldn't be the general manager because I would have hired somebody with experience. But it's September 29th. And that's the 6-step plan right there. If I bought the team today, the 7th step, if you want to count this, is I would go home, eat a gummy, and watch Monday Night Football. Man, would I eat a gummy after that kind of day. But let me say this. I think that the reason I bring this up is because we can't relitigate what happened in the past. I thought it was foolish to fire J-Rob in the middle of the season. I thought it was ridiculous to bring somebody in that Mike Vrabel did not respect to work hand in hand with Mike Vrabel. I thought it was insane after Rand Carthon's first year to promote him. I thought it was even crazier to put Chad Brinker in charge of the team. I think it is ridiculous that they have two guys doing one job and we don't even know if they see eye to eye. I would not have drafted the quarterback because I think the organization is in a bad spot, but you can't change any of that at this point. Amy can't go back and undo those things. So where do you go from here? That's the message. Again, if I took over today, Brinker, gone. Callahan, gone. We're moving on. She can do that. She won't, but she can do that. Again, if I had owned the team before today and it had been up to me, Mike Borgonzi wouldn't have been the general manager. Somebody like Thomas Dimitrov or Rick Spielman would be the general manager of the Titans, guys that have built good organizations in the past. Cam Ward wouldn't be the quarterback. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones would be the quarterback. But those decisions have already been made. Thomas Dimitrov is with the Saints. Rick Spielman is with the Jets. Cam Ward was the number 1 pick, and that is final. So that's the first part. This is not a quick fix for the Titans. But the reality is the only quick fix is to do all of the things that the Titans are not willing to do, which is to become a team that relies on playing defense, running the football, and being very, very boring. That's what they need to do. You need to get back to being boring. When the fans hated Terry Robisky, that's what you need to be. But I don't know if the organization understands that. I don't know if the organization understands that's how you go from 3 wins to 8 wins. Because you can't develop a young quarterback when you don't have a tight end. And this team doesn't have a tight end. You can't be a good defensive team when you cut your leading sacker. This team needs major surgery this offseason. And unfortunately, it's not even October. So that's the first thing. If I owned this football team, that's what we would do. That's how we would redo it. That's how we would restart it. And it would take time and it would be painful. But isn't it already painful now? So to me, that's ripping the Band-Aid off. That's first thing. Now, let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are the presenting sponsor of this program. You know that Hiller they are the best. They take care of my home. They can do the same for you, and they will. Just go online, happyhiller.com. They'll do it all for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC tech, and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, that's because it is. The reality is that they'll have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for the quote-unquote discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. You hear me talking all the time about why I love my friends at Hiller, but this is why I trust them in my home. Schedule online at happyhiller.com. That's the exact same way I schedule. Let them take great care of your home, and they will do that for you. Glad to have Hiller back on board the Stillman & Company program. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call that fish truck today. The second thing, we need to have a discussion about Cam Ward. And this is, in my opinion, an unpopular discussion about Cam Ward, but that's okay. Right now, this fan base, I assume, and I feel pretty strongly about this assumption, but its owner, its fan base, they are in a honeymoon phase with Cam Ward where Cam Ward can do no wrong and everything wrong with this team is everybody else's fault. Cam is the greatest and this organization is holding him back. And that Cam Ward press conference, that fiery one yesterday, showed that dog in him and that he's the man. Guys, Cam Ward has a quarterback rating right now of 63.9. That's awful. He has a PFF grade of 52.8, a PFF passing grade. That is what the quarterback does. A PFF passing grade of 51.1. Cam stinks right now. And yet, I saw it on cue. Justin Graver, the one that called Cam the perfect QB prospect, compared him to McNair, compared him to Mahomes. And he put up there the tape, the all 22 of that beautiful throw to Io Manor down the field yesterday, which was by far the best thing Cam did. And everything else after that was not very good. Well, you can't just take the good and ignore the bad. But in the honeymoon phase, that's what everybody wants to do. Now, I'm not telling you that Cam sucks. I'm not telling you that Cam can't be a great quarterback or that Cam can't be a starting quarterback or that Cam is the problem with this team. I'm not saying that. Cam is a tough kid and he's been through a lot, and I give him that. And while I thought it was absurd that this organization and the fan base thought he could carry the team as a rookie, I also actually think that one of my biggest fears, ruining the young quarterback, might not be as bad as initially thought because of the fact that Cam is a tough kid. But right now, Cam is a part of the problem. And here's why. Coming out, I did a lot of homework on Cam. I watched a lot of tape. I read a lot of scouting reports. If it was Cam Worthy, I studied it. I saw the good, the backyard football plays, like the 33-yard pass across his body to Io Manor across the field, which I assume, is the things that they got wowed with when they just went ahead and started comparing him to Mahomes or saying the traits reminded them of Mahomes. I assumed that all of the stuff about his personality was true, which even Brian Callahan was harping on today. This idea that no, Jared. Cam, he just wants to win football games. He's about the right stuff. He's about the right mentality. I don't doubt that. I do think Cam has a great personality for a quarterback, which is why, again, some of these other guys that have busted, like a Johnny Manziel, I don't ever worry Cam Ward will be like. But there were also worries about Cam coming out. He was not a perfect prospect. He was not Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford. Again, Matt Miller, the draft guru at ESPN, talked to scouts, executives, analysts, and had them rate the quarterbacks coming out since 2020. Cam was 18 of 21. Only Michael Penix, Kenny Pickett, and Shedeur Sanders were behind Cam. That means Justin Fields was ahead of Cam. That means Mac Jones was ahead of Cam. That means Anthony Richardson was ahead of Cam. That means that a lot of guys who have busted were ahead of Cam. And I was worried about some of the issues that did show up on tape. His size and his mechanics. I saw James Foster did a breakdown right here at 440 Sports where he talked after the Rams game about how Cam at 6'2" might have a difficult time seeing over 6'4", 6'5" defensive linemen. Jeffrey Simmons is 6'4". And when he throws those big arms up there, he's much bigger. And so when they get pressure up the middle, and Cam at 6'2" wants to stand there flat-footed and throw sidearm, there's a pretty good chance, like what happened yesterday, that ball's going to get tipped. Cam's footwork is terrible. And so while he has the ability to make these smooth, off-balance, wow plays where he looks like Superman out there, like the touchdown to Io Manor in the Rams game, he is equally as likely, because it's all arm when you have bad footwork, he's equally as likely to miss on an easy bunny. He's equally likely to make the throw he made yesterday where he threw the ball behind Io Manor. He has to adjust, turn his body, hit his hands, pop in the air, interception, you lose. Again, when it comes to Mahomes recognizes the time and the place to try to do the Superman stuff. And he's got a God-given ability that so few people have, and he has refined it. Cam hasn't. The arm angles and the footwork and stuff like that, it needs to get corrected. It needs to be refined. That superstar stuff, again, the touchdown to Io Manor against the Rams, the play he made yesterday to Io Manor, that is a club in the golf bag. Most quarterbacks don't have it. But I also need Cam Ward to be able to do the simple stuff. I need Cam to be able to stand in the pocket. I need Cam to be able, when there's pressure up the middle, to get the ball over defensive tackles. The Ryan Tannehill stuff. And if you can't complete the Ryan Tannehill passes consistently, you're not going to be accurate with the football. And it doesn't matter how many Superman plays you make, because you'll be turning the football over on the simple stuff. And the other thing with Cam that I am taking note of, I know a lot of people yesterday, they loved that press conference where Cam said the team was ass and he dropped the F-bomb and he talked about how they sucked. And you could see his frustration. And I think a lot of fans really liked that because they felt like Cam was empathizing with them, that, hey, I'm frustrated as a Titan fan to watch this crap every Sunday, and Cam's frustrated too. But that's not necessarily a good thing, that Cam is clearly frustrated. He's frustrated because they are losing, and his priority is going to be ending that frustration and embarrassment, because nobody likes to lose and nobody wants to be labeled a loser. But when you're frustrated as a quarterback, you're going to revert to your old habits. You're not going to be focused on your mechanics. And not only that, the Titans paired him with a head coach who is on the hot seat. And Brian Callahan was on the hot seat before Cam even got drafted. So it's not as if you can use the excuse that, well, we didn't know Callahan was going to be this bad. You're right. But you knew he was in trouble. And you knew it was possible that if this thing doesn't play itself in the right way, Brian Callahan's going to be out of a job and you're going to be starting over in year 2 with Cam. And again, that's a whole wasted year of development and a wasted year with Cam of working on those mechanics and the footwork. So again, he can do the easy stuff and then take that club out of his bag when it's time to do something special and go do it. So while all the complaining is about Amy and it's about Callahan, and people are throwing Brinker in there too, because I think they've had enough of his bullshit. And I get it. Trust me. I feel the same way you guys do. Let me say this. Cam is an issue. And it is an issue that they're going to have to figure out. Because as much as we as fans just want to close our eyes and open them and see Brett Favre or Patrick Mahomes or Steve McNair, there are a lot of quarterbacks who aren't Brett Favre that are taken high in the first round. There's a lot of Joey Harringtons. There was a guy here that won the Heisman Trophy and went to the national championship game. And he couldn't get on track because of all of the different changes. There was a guy here who won the national championship, had bad mechanics, and he couldn't get on track because they hired bad coaches for him and the head coach didn't want him and it was a lot of work. So if I could be blunt for a second, which I do feel like I'm pretty good at, I am worried about the deficiencies in Cam's game. I know he's a dog. I know. Jared, he's a dog. He's a winner. He's a competitor. I agree. But we can't get too caught up in the intangibles. All offseason, whenever the Titans did an interview and they were hyping up Cam, it always felt like they kept talking about the intangibles. Man, his leadership. Man, the way his teammates at Miami react to him. Man, the way that he went from being a 0-star recruit to being the number 1 pick. The intangibles, they're important. But so are the tangibles. Size, accuracy, turnovers. Those things are important too. And I am worried. I really am. I am worried about Cam Ward, and I am worried about what we saw yesterday because that was some ugly, ugly quarterback play. And I know the Titans aren't doing much to help him out. I'm not arguing that, but that was ugly. The third thing, and this is the thing that pissed me off the most about yesterday's game, L'Jarius Sneed. And what really drives me crazy about L'Jarius Sneed is that I feel like L'Jarius Sneed is the poster child, the poster symptom of the Amy Adams Strunk collaboration era. That Carthon, Brinker, Callahan, Kumbaya, we're all buddies, everything's going to work out, toxic positivity, horseshit. And L'Jarius Sneed is a perfect example of all the cooks in the kitchen and doing the single worst possible thing you could do. L'Jarius Sneed is not a bum. Because L'Jarius Sneed, we all saw, was a very good player for the Kansas City Chiefs. But he was an injured player with the Kansas City Chiefs. And even though the Chiefs figured out how to get him to the games, it was an injury that scared the Vikings away and apparently 30 other NFL teams too. But the Titans took the risk. They traded away the pick and they gave out the money to a solid player, but an injured player who also happens to be a bad guy, who also happens to be a selfish teammate. And you can't tell me about culture and then bank on L'Jarius Sneed. Last week, L'Jarius Sneed proved to all of us how truly selfish he is, making himself the center of attention with Nico Collins, and then proved yesterday after the game that he has zero humility when he refused to take ownership of his claims after the game. Remember, he was said, hey, he gets paid too. You told me you didn't even know who that was. And now you're telling me, well, he gets paid too? Sounds like a loser. This is a guy who allegedly shot up a car dealership because he was, quote, feeling uncomfortable. So after feeling uncomfortable, Sneed allegedly left the car dealership and came back to the car dealership, allegedly, and allegedly shot it up. Well, that sounds like a real stand-up guy to build your franchise around. And I understand that the NFL is not full of choir boys. I get it. But how can you build a culture where one of your highest paid players shows zero interest in helping the team win? And it's not as if L'Jarius Sneed is going out there and trying to lose, but clearly the team and what's best for the team and minding his business and doing his job and not giving the other team bulletin board material isn't all that important to him. And based upon the last year incident at the car dealership, it doesn't feel like it really ever was. And yet, the Titans gave the boot to Jarvis Brownlee last week because they thought he was undisciplined and he was unprofessional. Well, if Jarvis Brownlee is undisciplined and unprofessional, what's L'Jarius Sneed? And I was disgusted yesterday by what Brian Callahan didn't do. Because if I was Brian Callahan and my seat was burning hot to the point that, again, it's not about if Callahan's going to get fired, it's about when. I would have pulled Sneed off the field myself after allowing the big gain to Nico Collins. And I'd have deactivated him this week. And if Chad Brinker or Mike Borgonzi doesn't like it, fuck you, fire me. Because I'm not putting that guy back out on the field. John Gruden once fired Keyshawn Johnson. And that was a year after they had won the Super Bowl with Keyshawn on that team. But Callahan, as I kept trying to point out all offseason long, when he tried to invent the Pee Wee program, because he's going to try to use a game to hold people accountable and not himself as the coach to hold people accountable, Callahan stands up to nobody. Sneed went back out there. Callahan was asked about it after the game, said that it was a personal choice and blah, blah, blah. Again, a symptom of Amy wanting everybody to play nice. I was disgusted by L'Jarius Sneed talking trash and then not being able to back it up. And I can't imagine I'm the only person who feels the same way. I can't imagine there aren't some people in that locker room that are thinking, what's this guy got to do to have somebody point a finger in his direction? Jarvis Brownlee, what did he do? They shipped him out of town, but not Sneed. He allegedly shoots up car dealerships, but he is a great teammate. He makes himself the center of attention. He gets his ass kicked on the field. But he's a guy that we're trying to build this around? Embarrassing. All right, let's get to some of your reaction here on the program. I'm not going to lie to you. I have not been keeping up with the chat, so we're going to be rolling around with it as far as we go. Juan says, how come everyone who has won a Super Bowl is a broken record? Always in the headlines for something bad. Now A.J. Brown rumors are sparkling. So I need to know, I saw a lot of bad stuff about A.J. Brown, and I saw A.J. send out a tweet saying, I love you guys with like the injured heart emoji, and I don't even know what that's about. I'm not following that. Again, let me say this. When A.J. got traded, and I know in hindsight it looks bad because the Eagles won the Super Bowl and I get all that, but there were a lot of red flags with A.J., whether it was the knees or the Twitter fingers or everything else that everybody completely ignores now and just says, how stupid were you to get rid of A.J. Brown, which I get. But it does feel like an every other year thing where AJ seems to cause a problem in Philadelphia. 2 years ago, remember, they fell apart at the end of the year. Sirianni almost got fired. And it felt like when they did that AJ was a big part of the problem. But who knows? The distinguished gentleman says, why is Brinker the snake still here? You called him that, not me, though. Again, with Brinker, if I owned the team, I would fire Chad Brinker. And it wouldn't even be, I don't need to pay two guys to do one job. But here's what I think happened. And I've said this, and I don't think I'm doing a very good job of articulating that. So for that, I apologize. But here's what I think happened. I believe that between Amy and Vrabel and Robinson, all three kind of resented one another. Now, they all three needed each other. Vrabel and Robinson needed an owner to foot the bill. Robinson needed an owner to give him control. But I feel like they all kind of resented each other a little bit, especially between Robinson and Vrabel, and then Amy watching the friction that, again, nobody has ever told me was had between Robinson and Vrabel. But we had Robinson on the show, and I asked him about Vrabel. And he's like, yeah, I wish Mike the best of luck. It's like, oh, okay. Doesn't sound like that's my guy. And I say that because I think they need each other. But what happens when you resent somebody that you need is it all becomes bad. And then everybody tries to prove, I don't need you. I didn't need them. I don't need him. I don't need her. And as Albert Breer pointed out, Amy wanted the building to be a happier place, so she went out and got cooperative Ran Carthon. Well, again, it took me like a month to realize that Ran Carthon was incompetent. It took me a year to realize that about Brian Callahan. It took me a month to realize that about Ran Carthon. Amy probably realized it too. Now, it probably took her a year to figure that out. But at the same time, she figured it out. I think that whatever Chad Brinker's told her is what makes her think that Chad Brinker has the answer. Now, I just look at Chad Brinker as a co-conspirator on this team being so shitty. But if every time Rand wanted to make a move, Chad was saying, I don't know, but didn't have the authority to do so, then you do have to say, well, hey, every move that he first guessed was bad and he was right. But I just look at the resume when it comes to Brinker. I just look at the resume and I say, it's not good enough to run a football team. I will give you Borgonzi, who has no experience outside of whatever it is he does, and I don't even know what that is, and I don't know what his authority is, and I have no idea. And neither does anybody else in the media. Paul was asked, how much you think's Brinker, how much you think is Borgonzi? He said 50-50. Where'd you come up with that number? So I'm willing to give Borgonzi a shot because his resume, assistant general manager of the Chiefs, then says you get another shot. He wasn't here for all the crap the last couple of years. Give him a shot. Brinker, I don't get it. I don't understand the infatuation or the fetish, but he's in charge. And he runs the team for whatever that's worth. Kelsey says, Cam should not have been a plug-and-play first pick. I was very adamant during the offseason about Cam Ward sitting the bench because the organization was going to ruin him if they didn't. And what I have seen out of Cam is I think Cam is ready to play in the NFL. I think it's fine that he didn't start on the bench. I think it'll be okay. But the biggest concern I had about the organization is I felt like with Cam, I felt like the organization wasn't ready for him to be successful. We rescued an Australian Shepherd. So our Australian Shepherd passed away on Labor Day. And boy, it sucked. But the rescue that Lindsay found our previous Australian Shepherd from, Australian Shepherds Fur, F-U-R, forever. We love them. They had an immediate need for a dog who was an Aussie, the age of our other dog, and we felt like our yard was too big and our house was too empty. And so we drove all the way out to Virginia and back last Saturday, and we adopted this dog, and we love her. But in the process of Australian Shepherds Forever, who had rescued this dog from a rural shelter in Virginia, this dog, her name's Layla, and she is the sweetest. Layla was scheduled for euthanization in 2 days when Australian Shepherds Forever found her. And she had gone from one foster family to the next foster family, and they were looking for a home. And thank God that we were able to give her a home because she's awesome. We had to turn in so much paperwork and so much background work. We had to take pictures of our house and send it to the rescue. They called the vet to basically make sure that we were good pet owners, which we were. Our home was ready for that Australian Shepherd. The Tennessee Titans' home was not ready for Cam Ward. And so you may see that as Jared Cam bashing. I see that as a situational assessment that this team was not ready to make that pick. That's why. I love how people, when it comes to Cam Ward, they're like, Jared, your opinion doesn't matter. The distinguished gentleman said that everything I say about Cam is null and void because I never liked Cam. You're right. I didn't want to draft Cam Ward. But guess what? How can you say everything I've said is null and void? Does that mean that he doesn't have a quarterback rating of 63.9? Does that mean that he wasn't terrible yesterday against the Texans? Because he said he was terrible yesterday against the Texans. So you tell me something and help me out here. It's not an anti-Cam thing. I think it is more so an this team was not ready to nurture Cam to be the player that everybody wants him or believes he can be. That's all I'm saying. That's it. Trent says, congratulations on your dog. Got a full family now, Jared. Let me say this, man. We love our new dog, but we still miss our old dog. And I don't know, what to believe about afterlife or anything else, but hopefully if it exists, she's taking care of us for whatever that's worth. Okay. I want to get to, and I know it's Titans Monday, but I do want to hit some college football because holy crap, that was a great weekend of college football. And we've got Vanderbilt on College Game Day this week against Alabama. So I have to. I know it's Titans Monday, but I have to. Let's hit college football. I actually thought on Saturday night about doing an emergency podcast after the primetime game, and I think I would have done it after the Tennessee game if Tennessee would have lost, just because there would have been so many Tennessee fans that would have wanted to get in there and go nuts about Josh Heupel's clock management or the referees or whatever. But I couldn't stay up after the late games. In fact, Oregon, and my buddy's the offensive coordinator at Oregon. He, by the way, would be a good fit to be head coach of the Titans. But my buddy's the offensive coordinator at Oregon, and so I had the multi-view up, between Oregon and Penn State and Alabama, Georgia. And when Oregon went up 17-3, I turned the game off because I figured Penn State, they can't fucking score. And so I turned that off, and then I woke up. I fell asleep in the chair like an old man, and I woke up in the chair, and I saw that Penn State had tied the game and it was going to overtime. I thought, holy crap. But, of course, Penn State, like they always do, they ended up losing. All right, let's hit college football here on our way out. Number one, is Vanderbilt for real? I went to the Vanderbilt game against Utah State. Vanderbilt, I thought, got screwed by the referees on I think it was a blocked punt. Was it? It ended up being a safety. They ended up calling defensive holding. Then Vanderbilt made another special teams mistake. Utah State made it interesting for about a quarter and a half, and then Vandy really pulled away at the end of halftime, or the end of the first half, and then really out of the gates in the second half. Are they for real? We'll see on Saturday. But I think they are. I think their offense is legit. And the question has to be, can you make the playoff at Vanderbilt? ESPN, the FPI is giving them, I think, a 43% chance of making it to the college football playoff. That's pretty strong, especially for Vandy. But here's the thing about Vanderbilt. They've got an offense. They have scored on the road, Virginia Tech, South Carolina. They have scored in the second half. Pavia is putting it on people. They are scoring 50 points. I don't care that it's Scarbini State. South Carolina was the first test. Alabama is the second test. But I think that offense is legit. And after watching LSU on Saturday, I think Vanderbilt has a real shot to be able to outscore LSU. And so then the question is, okay, if they lose at Tennessee, because I don't think they can outscore UT on the road. If they lose at Tennessee, can that offense outscore Alabama or outscore Texas? I think they might be able to outscore Texas, which is crazy, but I'm watching the games and trying to make the assessment. If Vanderbilt goes to Tuscaloosa and beats Alabama on Saturday, then that will answer the question that they are for real. Until then, even though I am watch them every week take their belts off and smack somebody else on the ass, I'm still one step skeptical. Number two, Tennessee is lucky as hell that they won at Mississippi State. And Josh Heupel's clock management Saturday was questionable at best and atrocious at worst. I got it early on when they ran the ball and they let the clock go down and they had 3 timeouts. And I'm like, Josh Heupel is playing for a field goal and he's playing to keep Mississippi State from getting the ball back. But then when they ran the ball with 2 timeouts and they let the clock go, I thought, what the fuck is he doing? And the answer is he doesn't know what he's doing. And that is a bad sign. But the thing about great starting pitchers in baseball is that there are going to be some nights where they don't have their best stuff and they still find a way to gut out 7 innings and give up 3 runs. Tennessee did not play their best football on Saturday, and yet they still found a way to win. And in the world of college football, all that matters is how many games did you lose? And Tennessee didn't lose on Saturday. And that's all that matters. So they're lucky as hell. I don't know what Heupel was thinking, but they avoided what happened to them at Arkansas last year. And that's all that matters in the end. Number 3, I watched Alabama play Florida State week 1, and then I watched Alabama play Georgia on Saturday, and I'm not convinced you can tell me that those were the same teams because they look totally different. And I do not get it. But I actually think Alabama winning is good for Vanderbilt. Last year, Alabama got so fat and so happy after they went on the road and they beat Georgia that they completely overlooked Vanderbilt. That will not happen this year for obvious reasons. But it's still enough rat poison that it might be able to give Vanderbilt an edge. There's something about Alabama, and I just can't put my finger on it. Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. I even said that after they lost the Florida State game, and it looked so bad about where they were headed. I still said he's a good coach. Look at his record. And Ty Simpson was a very, very highly recruited quarterback. But there's just something about Bama I can't put my finger on. I'm just not sure I trust them. And that win at Georgia, I feel like is exactly what Alabama needed to feel like Alabama again. Number 4, LSU, man, they're hard to watch. And I figured that when it came to Vanderbilt making the playoff, Bama would be easier to win than LSU. But I'm not sure how LSU can score enough points to keep up with any of these good teams in the SEC. I don't know how LSU can score enough points to beat Tennessee. Now, I know that they're not on the schedule, but if they were to play in an SEC title game, I don't know how LSU does that. Lane Kiffin in the second half with a 2-score lead. Lane could have gone run, punt the rest of the way, and I think they would have won because LSU was totally inept offensively. Speaking of Lane, this is the fifth thing. The balls on that man, I will tell you, and I am a big, Lane Kiffin's not exactly my kind of guy. He kind of feels like a Barstool sports coach, which I'm not knocking Barstool, and I'm not knocking Lane Kiffin. But Barstool's not my thing. Lane's not my kind of guy. But man, to go for it on 4th and 3 at the end of the game, I wouldn't have done that, especially after my quarterback ran out of bounds the play before when you needed him to stay in bounds. So it's 4th and 3. LSU needs a touchdown, not a field goal, because they went for 2 and they didn't get it. And so you right here, Lane Kiffin, here's the ball game. You go for it, you get it, you win. You punt to LSU. You make that inept LSU offense drive down the field, score a touchdown to win. I didn't think LSU's offense could drive down the field to score a touchdown to win, so I was sitting there saying, punt the ball. Lane went for it. And I think that because LSU needed a touchdown, not a field goal, that maybe was enough for Lane to say, you know what? If they had to kick a field goal, they'd only have to go 20 yards, so we have to punt. But in this case, we can go for it because we still don't think they could score a touchdown. But the one thing I always say, when you're going to go for it in a situation like that, is you better have a play that you know is going to work. And that play that Lane drew up was beautiful. Just chef's kiss to Lane and Ole Miss. Number 6. What is Arkansas thinking by making Bobby Petrino their interim coach? And today, Bobby Petrino gutted the entire defensive staff. Hunter Yurachek, the athletic director at Arkansas, who I am not impressed with whatsoever, has said that Bobby Petrino has expressed interest in the position. And I have to ask, how could Arkansas possibly consider hiring Bobby Petrino? When I was a young pup on the radio in Louisville, Kentucky in 2014, I advocated that Louisville bring Bobby Petrino back. But that was when Bobby Petrino still had a reputation as a good coach. He doesn't have that anymore. He was not good after Lamar Jackson left at Louisville, and I'm not really sure he did a lot to make Lamar Jackson Lamar Jackson. But when it came to Louisville and us rehiring Bobby Petrino, the biggest issue was Bobby Petrino fell off the motorcycle with the woman at Arkansas. And can you really bring that guy back in to be coach? But he didn't do that to us. He brought that shame on that university. And they brought him back? And they brought him back after he was awful? And they've made him interim coach? And they're considering letting Bobby Petrino, after the motorcycle incident, after the embarrassment, after the year of John L. Smith, after what he did to that program, they're considering letting Bobby Petrino be the head coach again at Arkansas. And here's what's crazy about Arkansas. Arkansas is a weird job to me. I actually think Arkansas is a solid job because there is money there. But for some reason, they spend money like a legit SEC program and they get terrible results. Vanderbilt decides to start spending money and now they're on College game day, not Arkansas. If I was Arkansas, my call would be John Gruden. And I do not think that John Gruden is going to get a job in the NFL, so I don't ask. And I don't think John Gruden's that good in the NFL for all the hype that John Gruden has. John Gruden has voiced interest in wanting to coach in the SEC. John Gruden last year went down to the Touchdown Club in Arkansas and talked to those Fayetteville fans about how great Arkansas is. And he said at Florida he'd love to coach in the SEC. Other SEC jobs that may come open, like a Florida, might have better candidates that would be willing to take the job. I'm not sure Arkansas would have a better candidate to take the job than John Gruden. He would immediately bring a sense of attention to Arkansas football that they don't have. And even though Gruden had his off-the-field issue, it's nothing like Petrino. And Gruden is a more modern coach than Petrino or Bill Belichick, which the game has passed Bill by. Gruden's very much into it. He's online. He works for Barstool. He understands the performative element of being a college coach today. I also think John Gruden is willing to learn the things he doesn't know about college football. And with NIL, I think John Gruden would be willing to let the school invest in getting players as opposed to giving him a fat salary. Gruden wants back in the game. He wants back in the SEC. Arkansas has an opening, and I don't think they can do better than Gruden. I think Florida can do better than Gruden. I think one of these schools that's going to get pissed off and fire their coach this year can do better than Gruden. If I was Gruden, I wouldn't touch Auburn. But I think Gruden makes sense for Arkansas. And I think Arkansas makes sense for Gruden. Shame on you if you bet on James Franklin and Penn State to win a big game. And this Drew Aller, they talk about him as a first-round pick, first overall quarterback every single time I watch Penn State. And I'm sorry, but I am not wasting time watching Penn State play nobody. So every time I watch Penn State play a real game, Ohio State, Oregon, whomever, he throws for like 77 yards every time. It's amazing. And here was Penn State again, choking the game away at home, James Franklin. And even Franklin knows, yeah, I can't win the big one. So shame on you if you bet on Penn State and that inept offense with that overhyped quarterback. And finally, here's one thing I'm going to do every day this week on the program. And I'm not a Vanderbilt fan. I'm a Louisville fan. And boy, they pulled their game out of their ass this weekend. I am happy for Vanderbilt. I'm enjoying Vanderbilt's success and their relevance, and I hope they win on Saturday. I am going to say one bad thing about Vanderbilt every day this week, just to try to reverse rat poison them against Bama. So, the one thing I'll say this week is you're still little old Vandy. And you are little old Vandy until you prove otherwise. Beating South Carolina was nice, but it's not as if the gold standard in college football is beating South Carolina. Last year against Bama was a one-off because they completely overlooked Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt wants to be treated like a big boy school, Vanderbilt's going to have to go on the road and win the big boy games against the true blue bloods. Again, not South Carolina. No disrespect to South Carolina or Virginia Tech. If you want to be treated like a big boy, you're going to have to go beat an Ohio State. Again, the kind of games James Franklin can't win. And make no mistake, everybody on Saturday expects you to lose. So that's today's daily dose of Jared's Vanderbilt rat poison this week, or I guess reverse rat poison, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Motivation. But it's cool that they're getting College Game Day this week. That's it for us and the program today. We'll see what happens tomorrow with Brian Callahan. Remember, Tuesday is the day that Amy fires people. Fired Vrabel on a Tuesday. Fired J-Rob on a Tuesday. Fired Rand on a Tuesday. Fired Ken Wisenhunt on a Tuesday. Fired Mike Malarkey on a Monday, but after a Saturday game. So we'll keep our eyes open, but it seems like business as usual with Callahan. And until then, like and subscribe. Keep those subscribers up. We love it. We are so thankful for that. I even think the radio station is a little embarrassed. They've made multiple posts about trying to get their subscribers up because I already have more YouTube subscribers than they do. And this channel is less than a month old. So keep liking, keep subscribing, and we will see everybody tomorrow live right here, 2:00. And again, thank you to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Everybody, like and subscribe and wherever you get your podcasts.